Hello, everybody! I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome to another Genie Vlogger live stream. Today, we're discussing the 23andMe updates. A lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about the actual admixture updates, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about the company itself, just because there's been stuff going on with that as well that hasn't been hitting the news quite as much because it's not quite, not quite as eye-catching of a news story, but there has been some coverage of some of this stuff we'll talk about. I am going to see if I can make myself a little less glitchy looking. I think that's pretty good. That's good. So I'm going to bring up first. I don't know which one I'll start with first. But I will mention, some of you may have already seen, there's a poll. Have you taken a 23andMe DNA test? Why did that sound weird for some? I don't know. All right. So you can say yes, but I deleted my results, which I do see that we have 1 or 2 votes for that. No, or no, but parent, child, or sibling has. So basically a very close relative to you has. We've got 40 votes now. It went down for a second. Someone changed their vote, I guess. But if you haven't voted, be sure to vote. Oh, hold on one second. Oh, that's not good. All right. Hopefully my internet's not cutting out. Am I there? All right, we're gonna give it a second. I don't know if it's quite the same for everybody, but right now it's very glitchy on my end. There we go. All right, there we go. I think it's better. I think we're yeah. If give me some thumbs up if it's looking good. But I guess we'll do some quick hellos. Like I said last time, I'm gonna try not to do too long on the hellos. So just going to kind of click through everybody. Hello. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, Carmagal getting some updates from 23andMe. And yes, thank you, Eve. Happy Friday. And just for anyone that's like, hey, how did Eve do that fun little emoji, which is not coming up on screen that I'm putting it up on. She's a YouTube member. Which helps support the channel. So another spot I should say, I will be taking questions during the stream. You can put them in chat. Won't guarantee I'll answer all the questions in chat, but if you do a super sticker, I do guarantee that I will answer that. And then yeah, we're gonna go through a lot of stuff with 23andMe today. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Let's keep going through some hellos. Guten Abend allemal. We've got people from all over. We've got our wonderful admin, Charlie. Thank you for joining, Charlie. And all of these other wonderful people that I recognize all of your names. Eve was going to take 23andMe, but some of the news of what they might release to third parties seem concerning. Yeah, and that is a concern for a lot of people. I am pretty comfortable with it in that they have a lot of opt-in and opt-out options when it comes to that. But that doesn't mean that they're always going to necessarily adhere to that. And I know the terms of service, it's not something that everybody's comfortable with. So I definitely understand that. But yes, hello, everybody. We got people from all over. So I guess we'll kind of start with just talking about 23andMe as a company as a whole. Just to kind of do a little bit of a history. In late 2023, I think it was October 2023, so literally 2 years ago, there was a credential stuffing attack on 23andMe. And for anyone that doesn't know what that means, it means that there was a large database of emails or usernames and the associated passwords, not from 23andMe, but from other sites. And then the people take those passwords and usernames and plug them into 23andMe to see if they work. So that's why it's a credential stuffing attack. They have all these credentials and they just see, do these people use the same password here? One of the reasons why people always say use different passwords on different websites and have, random generated passwords and things like that. So there was that credential stuffing attack. There was lawsuits and things that came from that, as well as lots of people deleting their results, which I am curious if anyone in here did delete their results, which I see people answer that in the poll. I'd be interested to hear kind of what you were thinking and if if you're happy you deleted them or if you regret it or anything. Because I've seen a few things of people that say they regret it, but I'm also, some of the things I've seen with those, it's like, I don't know if that's real. Because it's never like someone actually posting it. It's always like a screenshot of a post, which is like, I don't know if that's, I don't know, a little sus. But anyway, so there were all those issues that came about from the credential stuffing attack. And then there was just a lot of issues that 23andMe had already had for a long time at that point because of the investigative genetic genealogy stuff. So that was the law enforcement and all those entities using DNA testing to solve crimes. It was what I was doing when I worked at DNA Labs International. So solve crimes, identify unknown human remains. 23andMe never had their database available for that, but a bunch of companies just had a lot of issues because of that, because it all got kind of lumped into this fear-mongering thing, which is, I think, something that I've discussed in a lot of different videos, especially a lot of my reactions to ones that were like 23andMe discussions. Yeah, if you go to my professional genealogist reacts channel, you could probably find a couple of those. And so the company dealt with a lot of issues. Then they declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy last year, I believe it was. And then there was a huge number of people who deleted their accounts after that. And I did see this, and I do remember you talking about this, Anna. I deleted it, but was thinking of redoing it. I know that sounds crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's, understandable. And I think that was one of the things that I always was talking about with people when they were like, oh, we should all delete it. It's like, be cognizant and knowledgeable about what that means. And I know, Anna, you knew what you were doing. But I feel like there were a lot of people that, had done 23andMe and then just like saw stories that were fear-mongering stories and like, okay, I got to delete it. So like one of the examples of one of the ones that I was like, I don't know, this is kind of sus, but like the story was that some guy had tested his grandpa on 23andMe. When all that stuff happened, he deleted all of the family's kits off of 23andMe. Then the grandpa passed away. And then in recent years, and then more recently, I guess not recent years, because this wall would have been in the past couple of years, then that person was like, I want to get my, now I want to get my grandpa's DNA back up, but it's all deleted. He never downloaded the raw DNA. So basically, he can't get his grandpa's DNA. So he had his grandpa tested on 23andMe, but now it's gone. Which, if that is a true story, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised. But it does sound to me, there's a little bit of a susness to it, just because it's almost like such a perfect story of like, see, we told you shouldn't have deleted your DNA kits, even though that was kind of my feeling for a large part. But yeah, so with the bankruptcy and all of that, since then things have started to be a little bit more positive. The company was sold. I forgot the first company it was sold to, but then I believe it was approved to be sold to Ann Wojcicki, who was the original CEO of 23andMe. On top of that, we also had a lot of things with the company that showed to me that they were trying. Big one that they attended as a vendor, Roots Tech, which is the largest genealogy conference in the world. They hadn't been to Roots Tech in a long time. I think it was like about 2020 or so. They started to like just say, we're going to focus only on our medical side of stuff, and we're not going to focus anymore on the genealogy side. And a lot of the people that had been using 23andMe for genealogy started to move towards Ancestry, because Ancestry kept making things better, and 23andMe kept doing stuff like adding 23andMe Premium, which put certain things behind a paywall. It made it so that we had much smaller match lists, so we had limits on the matches and all these different issues that was just like, pushing the genealogy community away. And that was before all of this other stuff, really happened with the bankruptcy. So it kind of has been going downhill for 23andMe for a while, but with them coming back to Roots Tech, that's kind of a big thing. Then them doing these updates, that's kind of a big thing. And they seem to be trying to appease more to the genealogy community. One of the things they did is they rolled out records to their site, which is a little lackluster if you are on any other site. Like basically, I don't think they have anything really that unique to their site. I'll have to look again. Last time I looked, it was like a dozen record sets, but it was all like stuff that you can find on Family Search for free. So it didn't make it that amazing, but they are trying. And so it's like, I wonder where they're going to take it. And with that, let's put it on the right thing. There's been a few big announcements over the past week that I think are somewhat interesting. The things I alluded to earlier that weren't quite as shared around. And this is a big one. 23andMe nets approval of data breach settlements in bankruptcy. So I'm going to put this in the chat if people want to read the whole article. But basically, there was... for that credential stuffing attack, there was the subsequent lawsuits, And then there's been an approval of that settlement. So this is, I guess, kind of the details on it. Establishes a fund between 30 million and 50 million and a Canadian fund of 3.25 million, which also means, because I believe it's a class action lawsuit. I could be wrong on that. I don't know for sure, but I think there's ways that if you've tested at 23andMe, that you can get part of the settlement, but I don't know the exact details on all that. But this is pretty big because this means that they are a step closer to finishing their Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then once they're kind of out of those woods, then it's going to be really interesting to see where things go from there. But the main thing that we're going to focus on today are the updates to the Ancestry composition, the admixture percentages, as many people know it as. And we went through this 2 weeks ago in the live stream when we were talking about their update and the Ancestry update. This is actually from just a couple of days ago. This was from on my birthday, just a couple of days ago. So this is even more updated, but it didn't really say anything that much else that we talked about last week. But the big things are that new granularity in your Ancestry percentages, and that's 33 new populations in Europe and 6 in the Americas. And then we've updated our algorithm to eliminate broadly and unassigned categories in the default results view, which, funny enough, I have recorded a video and finished editing it and all that. It's about to be available for my Patreon users. So, by the way, and for my YouTube members. So if you want early access to videos of mine, be sure to join my Patreon or become a YouTube member. Really helps support the channel. Plus, you get early access and there's other stuff you can get from it. So that's going to be available soon. And funny enough, in that video, I noticed that when I was going through the confidence slider. So going through the levels of confidence, there's like the default view, and then there's 50%, 60, 70, 80, and 90%. And as soon as you do 50%, all of a sudden broadleads and unassigned start coming in. So their default view, I don't know quite what the percentage will be, but it's like, so is it not 50%? Because when you do 50%, then it's different. So I don't know, interesting. But anyway, they claim more accurate results because they've started a new state-of-the-art DNA phasing pipeline. And DNA phasing, for those who don't know, is basically where you look at somebody's DNA and you figure out what DNA came from mom and what DNA came from dad, because it's not actually that easy to tell just by looking at somebody's DNA. So all of these are supposed to be really good. All of this update is supposed to make it much better. All the estimates, a more accurate estimate of your percentages. Then they say a new version history. In all honesty, it's very lackluster. You get to see this version and you get to see the last version. And if you want to see any previous versions, then you have to pay for the Premium Plus. But in my opinion, especially from a genealogy standpoint, there's no benefit to paying for that. there's really not that much of a benefit. But, to each their own. I know some people really love admixture percentages, and if that's you, maybe it's worthwhile for you. So they kind of talk a little bit more about some of the stuff and basically say, hey, check out our, guides on how to learn more about this and what it means and kind of the white papers. And so this is the PCA plot point where you can see how all of the different populations overlap, and you can see them here. These are tools you can use when interpreting your results to try to better understand what could be happening, because you might be getting a result that you're like, well, why am I getting that result when my ancestry is this? So look over here, we have all of these which look like they're Turkish, but then they're clustering over all of this other stuff. Or is that, I can't tell if that's Turkey or Switzerland. I don't know. It's a little, I'm sure it probably is even harder to read for all of you because it comes out even more pixelated. But anyway, with these updated compositions, I have asked my Discord community, which great time to shout out, Discord community of mine. You can join. Charlie, if you're still in here, and you can post the invite. that'd be great. And I'll put it up on screen too. But I've asked the people of my Discord to post their results, and we're going to go through those. So I've asked them to post their old results and their new results. So this is the Discord community. And the first one we're going to be doing is Piggy. And so we have before and after. And so you can easily tell which one's the before because there's nothing that says new. So for the before for Piggy, let me make sure this is coming up nicely. Okay, yeah, good. We have Northwestern European, 91.7%, British and Irish, 86.6%, Scandinavian, 2.1%, French and German, 2%, broadly Northwestern European, 1%. Then we have Southern European, 6%, with that broken into Spanish, Portuguese, 4.9%, Greek and Balkan, 1.1%, and then a very small broadly European. And then we have 2.2% Western Asian, North African, which it all is then Peninsular Arab. Now for Piggy's updated results, here we have 97.8%. And then I know that it's broken into two, so it's not that the Western Asian is gone. But if we look at it, it's exactly the same for the European and Western Asian reading differences, 97.8%. British and Irish, 76.4%. And then we can see that now it's breaking down even more. So they have an English reading, Irish, Welsh, and Scottish. So before, they just have British and Irish, and then they have the subsequent little communities, I think they called them. And now we're getting a lot more. And then there's the communities within those. So British and Irish, 76.4%. And previously it was 86.6%. So a little changed up, but I think that's because we see more nuance with some of that Western European. So Western European, 19.4%. And before, they didn't have a Western European definition necessarily. So probably the French and German, definitely not Scandinavian. I don't think Scandinavian, Scandinavian's definitely much more northern. What's wrong way? Wrong way. So with 19.4% broken up into 15.6% French, 3.5% Dutch and Northern German, and then Belgian, Rhinelander, and Southern Dutch, which is interesting. They get that granular with it. So it's really cool to see that that they are getting that granular. The only thing is that the more granular they get, the confidence gets a little bit more difficult to. The confidence gets a little bit lower, I think. So with the other part, we have Southern European beforehand again, 6%. And then when we go forward, then we're getting they don't have a Southern European reading anymore. Now it's more specific in the broad category. So they have a Greek and Balkan reading at 1.2%, which is specifically Albanian and Macedonian, which is pretty cool. Italian and Maltese, which is all Maltese at 0.8%. And then going back with the Southern European, they had Spanish and Portuguese. They had the Greek and Balkan, but no more Spanish and Portuguese. So the Spanish and Portuguese got lumped into other stuff, and I guess probably into that Western European. That actually makes a lot of sense, and probably that French. And then lastly, the Western Asian and North African, 2.2%. And now instead of it being all Peninsular Arab, it's also 1.3% Egyptian. So pretty interesting to see these changes. And I don't know if Piggy's in here. If anyone that I'm going through your results are in here. Oh, and I saw Charlie added this. If anyone is in here and I'm going through your results, post or make a comment if you can about, what you would expect. So the next one, we know he's in here. I just put up that, and that's Charlie. So for beforehand for Charlie, 99.1% European, 98.4% Northwestern European, and that's broken British and Irish, 96.6%, Scandinavian 0.8%, broadly Northwestern European 1%. Then just a half a percentage is Southern European, which is Spanish and Portuguese, very small 0.2% broadly European. And then we're getting a bunch of trace results: Central Asian, Coptic Egyptian, Bengali, and Northeast Indian. So it'll be interesting to see, are those going to stick around? Are those going to go away? Or are they going to be redefined into something more specific? And here we see European 98.9%, and it's gone down a little bit, 99.1 to 98.9. The British Irish 97.1, which is now English at 81.3 and Irish at 15.8%. When we go back, we can see that British and Irish is all one as 96.6%. So a little bit more in the British and Irish overall reading. And then Central and Eastern European 0.9%, all Belarusian, Polish, and Ukrainian. And we see here none of that. Doesn't even really tie to any of this stuff either. And 0.9%, this is a new reading, or a new category, I guess. So kind of interesting. Wonder where it's coming from. But then we do get the half a percentage of Spanish and Portuguese, and just going back, we do have that. So that's stuck around. But now we also have Western European with Dutch and Northern German at 0.2%, and then Nordic Icelandic at 0.2%. But then interestingly enough, some of that is still sticking around. Central and South Asian 0.6%, Western Asian and North African, specifically at Egyptian at 0.5%. So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, that's right. My non-European results are from a bit of Romani Gypsy ancestry. That's right. I always forget that you had that Romani Gypsy ancestry. So yeah, so that's very cool. So you're seeing that come up. Charlie, actually, can you say how far back is that ancestry? Like your most recent ancestor that was fully Romani Gypsy, if you have one. I don't know if maybe it's kind of like a lot of mixed ancestry. So yeah, very interesting results with Charlie's having that and then seeing that stick around. So yeah, I completely forgot about that ancestry that you had. All right, so let's continue on. And we have Jose DLT 80. And I don't believe Jose posted any old results. They just posted the new update. But we'll go through it anyway, because with Jose, they are coming from a Spanish ancestry, I think, and it's a Caribbean ancestry. Okay, so indigenous Caribbean. Okay. So we have European, Spanish, and Portuguese, 89%, and then we can see a lot of the breakdowns that they've added. Canary Islander is an interesting one that's been added, and then Basque, which I'm trying to remember. I think they had a reading that was like France, southwestern France in Basque, or maybe I'm thinking of another site or something, but I feel like I remember something like that. But then, Portuguese Galician, 72.5%, Aragonese and Catalan, 7.4%, the Canary Islander, 6.1%, Andalusian, Asturian, and Castilian, 2.6%. Oh yeah, I said Castilian up there, Catalan. Basque, and then Western European, 0.8%, which is broken into Swiss and Western Austrian and Southern German. And then 0.3% Ashkenazi Jewish. Not surprised. There we go. The answer: fourth or fifth great grandmother. I think my fourth great was mixed. Okay. Yeah, because I know for my Sephardi ancestry, my most recent fully 100% ancestor that was Sephardi, his wife was also 1/8 Sephardi. So it's like I have a second great grandfather who was 100% Sephardi, and then I have second, third, fourth. Then I have a fifth great grandmother who's 100% Sephardi on a different line. So it's like, yeah, it kind of makes it difficult to explain So, but when you all see the new video when it comes out eventually on my new results, I go over that. So anyway, back to Jose's results. Indigenous American 5.3%, with North American at 4.6%, and Central Andean and Amazonian at 0.7%. Which, if I remember correctly, I'm actually going to go back and see. I think they have a list here. Yeah. So this is the Indigenous American is one of the big updates. So the two updates were 33 new ancestry populations in Europe. You're seeing a lot of that. And then we're seeing Indigenous American will be broken into 6 new ancestry. So Indigenous American now is more nuanced. And so we're kind of seeing that here with North American Indigenous, Central Andean, and Amazonian. Then we're getting 2.6% Sub-Saharan African, which is all Angolan and Congolese, which is then in Southern East Africa, which is kind of interesting. I guess maybe a testament to the African Caribbean connections. And then Western Asian and North African 2%, which is then broken into Northern West Asian at 1.1%, which is then Iranian, Caucasian, and Mesopotamian. And then broken down, then we also have 0.7% Arab, Egyptian, and Levantine, and then a 0.2% North African, and then additional ancestry regions, Havana, Cuba, and then indigenous Caribbean Cuban. So Jose, I'm guessing, is Cuban. And now we have Lemur Cat, and I think Lemur Cat posted all new stuff too. So, is this? Wait, Jose posted twice. Unless that's... Yeah, he posted twice. Okay. All right, so Lemur Cat, 99.8% European. We have British and Irish at 53.8%. Let's see. We have English at 31%, Welsh 20.4%, Scottish 2.2%, Irish at 0.2%. Oh, they posted it in 2 posts. That's why it was like that. And then for Lemur Cat, Western European 31.4%, and then that's broken into 23% French, 6.7% Swiss and Western Austrian, 1.2% Dutch and Northern German, 0.5% Belgian, Rhinelander, and Southern Dutch. So it is very interesting how it's getting much more granular, but with all these very small percentages popping up, it tells me that there's a lot of work that I think they have to do to get it much better. So hopefully we'll see maybe like a version 7.5 in the next few months or something as they get more feedback. That's the word I'm looking for. So the Nordic 13% broken into Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and Icelandic, but mostly Swedish. And then we see the regions coming from Sweden, but all these, like I said, small percentages, which are, if they're Swedish, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. A small percentage of Danish, small Norwegian, small Icelandic doesn't mean they have that ancestry. Could mean that that's a common thing that Swedes have, that other populations have that DNA. So, that's the thing with these. Then 0.9% Greek and Balkan, which is all Greek. And then 0.7% Spanish and Portuguese, which is all Aragonese and Catalan. And then we have trace result of Senegambian and Ghanaian at 0.2%. So very interesting for Lemur Cat. Not sure if Lemur Cat is in here. Oh, here we go. Pigetta Pay. Hi, I'm Piggy from the first result shared. My ancestry is majority British. My 2 times great-grandmother was Irish. Regarding the Egyptian, Maltese, and Albanian, I'm not sure. Heard it's from my 3rd great-grandparent. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. All right. So we did look at Jose's before. And now we have Steve Harvey, not the actual Steve Harvey. I think that's it. Matthew Bob Slick Shade Pants. Steve the Go. I forget. Yeah, I feel like I saw something that Steve Harvey had where I was like, oh, it's that person. I know who that is. So yeah, hey, if Steve Harvey, if you're in the chat. Oh yeah, it's right here. Matthew. That's right. Okay, I was like, I knew I saw his name somewhere. So Matthew, if you're in the chat, let us know. So we have, oh, these are all new results too. Okay, so we'll just go through new results. But we're gonna jump forward. So Cuban. So Matthew's Cuban. So get an idea of what we're looking at, and lots of readings. For Cuban, European 95.9%, so kind of similar to Jose's that we saw before. 47.9% Spanish and Portuguese, which I'm surprised it doesn't have the new next to all of these. But maybe it's when you click on them it goes away or something, and he clicked on them. I don't know. But Canary Islander is the majority. Andalusian, Asturian, and Castilian 11.3%. Portuguese and Galician at 2.1%, and Basque at 1.9%. And then Italian and Maltese 24.9%. All tracing to Southern Italian at 24.9%, which gives me the feeling that Matthew probably has an Italian grandparent who is from Southern Italy. So Matthew, if you're in here and that's right, comment in there below, or comment down below, which I guess maybe that means that maybe like one of your parents is Cuban and the other parent is half Italian, half British Irish, whatever we're about to see here. That's 21.3%, which is that everyone can see that on here. Can you? Yeah, you can. Okay. Like trying to make sure it's not being blocked. Actually, you know what? Let's see where. Let's go back to that one, and we're just going to move this up. There we go. Wunderbar. Yeah, update that. All right. So continuing with the Europe, British and Irish, 21.3%. Irish is 20.8%, so the majority of it. 0.5% English. And then we've got a lot of different small percentages. We have 1% Nordic, which is all Danish, which I'm sure ties to whatever British or whatever Irish ancestry it has. Because that's what I'm guessing now is he has one grandparent that's Irish, one grandparent that's Italian, one parent that's Cuban. And so we're seeing a lot of that coming out of we're seeing a lot of these small percentages coming out of that mixture. So the Danish tying to the Irish ancestry, the Greek and Balkan, the Albanian, Macedonian. I'm guessing that's either tying to the Italian ancestry, or it's possible it could be tying to the Cuban ancestry. And then for Western European at 0.2%, all Belgian, Rhinelander, and Southern Dutch. That's probably the Irish ancestry. And then we have Indigenous American, 3.4%, broken into North American at 2.3%, and Southern Mesoamerican at 1.1%. So probably a New Yorker. I mean, honestly, that does sound like a very New York family, Cuban, Italian, and Irish mixed together. Now he needs to find a Jewish wife, and then he can get the full thing with his kids. the perfect New York family. Let's see. I'm just gonna kind of. I have not been checking chat much this stream, so I just want to take a quick look through. But yeah, seeing a lot of people talking about their updated results. So okay, so we've got Steve Harvey, then Lemur Cat. Oh, this is Lemur Cat's dad. So we saw Lemur Cat before. Now Lemur Cat's dad. They're 99.9% European, 67.9% of it British and Irish, broken into English, Welsh. And with these communities, I'm guessing like 12.9% Welsh. I wonder if Lemur Cat's dad has a great grandparent that's Welsh. And I guess that would mean that Lemur Cat would have a second great grandparent that's Welsh. And I wonder if that's kind of what that is. That is 12.9%. That is pretty close to what we'd expect for Welsh. In fact, actually, while I'm talking about this, I'll throw that banner up. I haven't put that banner up on here for a long time. Where in the Discord chat do I post mine? So if you want to post yours, it's in the DNA test results. Yeah, what Charlie said here. I should mention, I'm not going to be able to go this entire time, but I will say, if anyone does like a super sticker thing, if you post your results in the chat or in the DNA test results, and you want me to look at them, to go through them in here, do a super sticker. I wonder if I should make a minimum for that. Yeah, I guess probably the equivalent, whatever the equivalent of $5, whatever the equivalent of $5 is, or something like that. I think that sounds about right. So, you don't have to pay that, but if you want, guarantee me to go through it on stream, I think that sounds good. So, but we'll otherwise just keep going through these. So if you post it in there, I might still get to it. All right. So continuing on. Then we have Western European, 25.9%, and that's broken into Swiss and Western Austrian, French, and then Dutch and Northern German. Interesting. Then we have Nordic at 4.6%, which is all Danish. And then we have Greek and Balkan, 1%, all Greek. And then Central and Eastern European, which is all Estonian, at 0.5%, and then a very small 0.1% Egyptian. So very interesting. So that's Lemur Cat's dad. Just interesting. Yondavin. Only MyHeritage to catch up now. Their last version has me at 80.3% Dutch. Okay. All right. CalRock, which CalRock posted a whole bunch earlier. So we're going to see all of these. And so with these, let's see. So my old results versus new results. And with CalRock, we have European 74.9%, and then East Asian 25%. Now we're going to see CalRock's parents and all of that. I believe CalRock posted, maternal grandfather and maternal grandmother. And the maternal grandfather's half niece. Okay, so a lot of different ones. So European, broken into Northwestern European, 74.9%, and that's mostly British Irish, with then French and German, Scandinavian, broadly Northwestern European. And then we have 25% East Asian, so grandparent, I'm sure that is fully East Asian, which I'm wondering if that, it looks like it's going to be this grandparent, maternal grandfather. So cool, we'll get to go through that. Southern Chinese and Taiwanese, 11.4%, South Chinese, 8.6%, broadly Chinese, 1.4%, Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar, 2.3%, Filipino and Austronesian, 0.9%, and broadly East Asian, 0.4%, and then 0.1% unassigned. And that's updated now to 75% European. So just to take a look, it's evened out a bit. That unassigned 0.1%, they're confident it's European now. British Irish, 67.7%, and that's Scottish and English. Then we have Nordic at 6.4%, which is Norwegian, Icelandic, and Danish. Then we have this Western European, which is Belgian, Rhinelander, and Southern Dutch at 0.8%. And then Spanish and Portuguese, Aragonese, and Catalan at 0.1%. And then going back, we can see that the British and Irish, that went up from 59 to 67.7. Nordic seems to have come out of this Scandinavian and broadly Northwestern European, possibly, maybe even the French and German. I guess a lot of the French and German, and then just a little bit of that still around with the Western European and Spanish and Portuguese. Then continuing on, the East Asian, I think it didn't change at all. Yeah, it didn't change at all. Well, they didn't actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they didn't even say that they were going to change it. So that kind of makes sense anyway. So now looking at the maternal grandfather's old results. So this is 100% Asian, or at least 99.4% East, 0.5% Central and South Asian. And I'm sure that unassigned is probably Asian. But then we have Chinese at 76.5%, and that's broken into Southern Chinese and Taiwanese, South Chinese, excuse me, and then broadly Chinese at 4.6. So pretty similar to what we saw for Khao Rock, Southern Chinese, Taiwanese, South Chinese, broadly Chinese, just broken down a bit more, obviously. And then the Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar, the Filipino, Austronesian, broadly East Asian, and then we have Bengali and Northeast Indian. Now, the big thing that we're going to be looking at here is the change of the percentages, because the thing that we were talking about before, more accurate results. So even if we don't have expected new regions in the test, so jumping back over here, that like all these, if you don't have Indigenous American or if you don't have European, so like the grandfather here being all Chinese or Asian, I guess I should say, not all Chinese, but I assume probably Chinese. We should see an update on the percentages because of the new state-of-the-art DNA phasing pipeline. So let's see, does it change? And it does, just a little bit. So the Chinese went down by 0.1%, so 76.5 to 76.4. Southern Chinese and Taiwanese, 51.7 to 58.3%. So much, a little bit of increase. Southern Coastal Chinese at 18.1%. And, oh, interesting. So I guess they redefined that. So South Chinese, now they're calling it Southern Coastal Chinese, which maybe that's kind of what they were meaning beforehand, but it was probably confusing with Southern Chinese and Taiwanese versus Southern Chinese. Like, well, what's the difference? So I guess maybe they're defining that, but 18.1%. So that went at basically South Chinese and broadly Chinese broadly Chinese disappeared and Southern Coastal Chinese or whatever went down. Then we have Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar at 13.8% on the new and 14.3% on the old. So that went down. Filipino, Austronesian, 7.4% on the old, 8.4% on the new. So the Filipino, Austronesian went up. And now we have 0.6% Korean, which before it was we just had a 1.2% broadly East Asian. But remember, one important thing that they mentioned that's going to be part of this is that, let's see, do they have it in here? Basically, they say that there's no more broadly categories in the default setting. Yeah, here we go. Improvements to the science and the removal of broadly and unassigned categories, unassigned ancestry. So it's still, oh, there we go. So it's broadly East Asian in the old results, but that's not there in the new results because they're saying we're not going to have broadly in there. But I'd be very curious what the confidence change would be for this. And then we have Central and South Asian at 0.8%, Bengali and Northeast Asian, Northeast Indian. And then that's gone up a little bit. And then, let's see, was that? Yeah, that was it. So, yeah, so with the old to the new, not much change, just a lot of little tweaks. And unfortunately, the thing that it really comes down to for me when it comes to these updates, is it genealogically useful? Are we actually going to get something out of this that really helps us with understanding our ancestry? In my opinion, I think that's going to be a mixed bag. So like for this here with the Asian ancestry, I don't really think it does. The Korean added in here at 0.6%. I think it's a trace result for one. So the confidence is really low. And it almost feels like it's something they're just thrown in there because they said, we're not going to have unassigned in there. We're not going to have broadly in there. And if we look at the old results, well, it had broadly East Asian, broadly Chinese, unassigned. And so it's like, well, is it making it really better in understanding it? Or are they just trying to, make it easier for the layman to digest? But in reality, for those of us that want to look into this in depth and especially use it genealogically, it doesn't do much. And to me, this is the kind of thing where people see it and they just get confused. they just get so confused about it all. So, okay, so continuing on with some more. I think, let's see. Since Cal Rock posted a lot, I'm not going to worry about the maternal grandmother, especially because she's just 100% Northwestern European. So I don't think, I mean, it is actually, we can kind of, I don't know. Let's see if we can make it bigger. There we go. So I don't know if you all can kind of see it there, but basically you can kind of read the whole thing already. And so Northwestern European, British and Irish, French and German, Scandinavian, broadly Northwestern European. And then you can see it's basically the same, just tweaked differently. I guess the biggest thing actually, never mind, is British and Irish is now 96.2%, whereas before French and German had a huge chunk. Now it's a very small chunk. And then Scandinavian and broadly Northwestern European, 4.3%. And if this person, if all their ancestry is British or Irish or English or whatever it is, I guess it'd be mostly English, they probably were looking at that French and German like, what? Where is that coming from? So I'm not sure if Cal Rock is in here. If Cal Rock is in here, comment, let us know with this maternal grandparent. But going on, the maternal grandfather's half-niece, another Asian result. And so with this one, we see I'm not going to name each one, but we kind of, similar to what we saw before. And then when we look at the new results, it's a decent change. Chinese is at 69.2%. Oh, whoops. Don't want to go there. Whoops. Okay, so 69.2% from 64.2%. So that went up. Southern Chinese and Taiwanese at 42.6%. It's not too different. Southern Coastal Chinese, 27.8%. And we know that's going to be a big difference because, the broadly Chinese is gone, and I'm guessing that's probably going to the Southern Coastal. Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar, 26.1%. And that's now 17.9%. Filipino, Austronesian, 12.1%. And then that's 7.6 now. And then the broadly East Asian, 1.9. Well, that's going to be gone. But now we get Chinese diet, 0.3%. And then the Southern Indian subgroup at 0.5%. So interesting. All right. So now we've got Karmagal. And I'm pretty sure I saw Karmagal in here before. So, yeah. Eric Sheridan. I don't really pay attention to the ethnicity breakdowns. Pretty much the same for me. Honestly, if I didn't do the YouTube stuff and constantly talk about DNA tests, I probably wouldn't talk that much about it and care that much about it. But just because, for one, it gets a lot of people clicking, because that's a big thing people really do pay attention to with these, unfortunately. But yeah, I probably wouldn't worry that much about it either. They change and don't really help me with my genealogy. Biggest thing right there. I can see where it would be helpful for adoptees, but matches are more useful in my humble opinion. Agreed. 100%. 100% agree. All right. So Karmagal, we've got 100% European, and that is broken up a lot with a lot of these new readings. So British and Irish, 61%, broken into English at 59.7%, Welsh at 1.5%, Scottish at 0.3%, and then Irish at 0.1%. Then we have the Western European at 30.5%, and that's broken into Belgian, Rhinelander, and Southern Dutch at 15.9%. And that's interesting. They have it as North Rhine-Westphalia, the Western states, as part of that. That community is part of that region. Then Dutch and Northern German at 6.2%, and Hamburg is part of that. Okay, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's very interesting to me. Austrian and Southern German, 4.3%. And so the interesting thing is, with Karmagal, I know a bit of her ancestry. She's done consultations with me, very active member of the community on Patreon. She's one of my longest and biggest supporters on Patreon, probably one of the biggest supporters of the channel overall. And so, I know she's got a somewhat mixed ancestry. There we go. Yeah, Karmagal. Oh, that's my dad's updated. Couldn't find the older screenshots. I know I have them somewhere. Yeah. But yeah, so it's, with that ancestry, it's cool seeing a lot of that. And I'm guessing, and maybe you can say this, Karma, with your dad's ancestry, do these regions, they're like the actual regions, like the North Rhine-Westphalia and Hamburg and Bavaria and all that, like those actually tie to what you know of the family story, or at least what you might understand of the family story. And then let's see. Continuing on, is that right? Okay, yeah. Wait a second. Oh, this is I was like, wait, what's going on? This is the bottom part of it. I was like, wait a second. So then we have the added the Italian Maltese, 1.5%, Northern Italian 0.7, Southern Italian 0.6, Sardinian 0.2, Spanish and Portuguese 0.3%, and that's broken into Andalusian, Asturian, and Castilian, and then a 0.3% Ashkenazi Jewish. And then you're getting that region European diaspora, Boonville Hills, early British, Irish Americans. So, yeah. Yeah, and click on version history. It shows a clear comparison table of what has changed. Yes. And in my video that's going to be coming out, which I should mention again, it's going to be available for my Patreon users very soon. Honestly, probably today you'll be able to watch it on Patreon, and my YouTube members too. So I'll make it available for both. But yeah, I'll be going through that. I'll be showing that comparison table. So, all right. How long have I been going? Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been going for almost an hour. So, yeah. And also, if anyone has anything anything they're thinking about with, 23andMe, as a company and all this stuff going on, let me know. One thing that I mentioned before was about them being at Roots Tech last year. Another big thing is that they're going to be at Roots Tech this year. They're actually one of not the main sponsors, but it's like the next tier down. I don't know what they're going to be called, but it's like there's, gold, silver, and platinum. They'd be like silver, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. But that's a big thing to me. They're trying to connect with the genealogy community. They're trying to, they're trying to really expand as a business. And I'm guessing that they're probably thinking they're going to put a lot of stuff into the premium, the 23andMe Plus, and try to make it as attractive to the genealogy community as possible so that people start buying those memberships. Yeah, Burke, I usually do not understand the argument on the accuracy of admixture results. If we judge the result based on what we know about our family history, doesn't it make it meaningless? Well, yes and no. I mean, I think there is a use to admixtures. Like I always kind of, hit on them, but it's a very minimal use. And the thing is by understanding your family history and comparing that to the results, it helps you understand what might be the most likely possibility. And that's one of the reasons why it's always like, well, what do we know about this ancestry? So like a great example I like to use, if someone has, if they're Spanish and they do a DNA test and they get, 3.5% Jewish reading, it's going to be like, okay, we have a much lower confidence that it really is, a recent Jewish ancestor, because we know a lot of Jews assimilated into the larger Spanish populations. And so it's not uncommon for people that are descendants of Spanish or Portuguese ancestry, especially if you're fully Spanish or something like that, to get percentages like that of Jewish, but not have a Jewish ancestor that would equate to 3.5%, which if you're looking at the bottom of the screen, about a third great grandparent, maybe a fourth great grandparent. But in reality, could be ancestors that are like, there's dozens and dozens of, 18th, 19th, and 20th great grandparents who during the Inquisitions assimilated into the general Spanish population. But then take that same thing of someone who's fully British Irish, and they're getting 3.5% Jewish. Well, now we know that their ancestry is all British Irish, so our confidence is much higher. And so I know that's a much more straightforward one. which actually I maybe I cut myself off. I should continue that thought. But basically, someone with British ancestry, it's not a common thing of all these Jews assimilating into large populations of people of Britain and making it so that the present day population of Brits, it's common for them to have Jewish ancestry. It's not. And so I think that's the big thing, is that understanding the family history allows us to then understand the interpretation much better. But I think that it is one of those things where, you know, it's not as important as a lot of people make it out to be. So I'm like not fully on board with you, but it's like I'm halfway there. Like I understand the arguments of the accuracy. I just don't think that they're as important as arguments of other things, like a chromosome browser on Ancestry, or, you know, different tools being made available, or I would love to see a lot of these databases working together. I mean, imagine 23andMe and Ancestry doing some sort of cross-company thing where if you're on Ancestry, you can pay a fee and get your DNA results transferred to 23andMe as well. If they release that, like $50 to transfer from Ancestry to 23andMe or vice versa, oh my gosh, I bet so many people would do that. Because it, you know, it's a big deal. So yeah, but I guess I'm getting into other, that's stuff that's more important in my opinion. So there is a use to this stuff, but it certainly is not quite as amazing as some people make it out to be. Like the people that go on a GEDmatch and do, like, you know, 20 different calculators to, you know, see what might give them, you know, the best results that's closest to what they're hoping for. So, you know, I see that all the time of people, like, you know, trying to prove some sort of crazy hypothesis they have that has nothing in reality to do with it. And then they look at all these different calculators and they point to all these little things in the calculators that are like, oh, that must be it. You know, Eurogenes 13 said this, and then I did Eurogenes 25 and it added this thing, and that makes sense, and this and that. And, you know, it's, yeah. All right, continuing on. We've got Bear Vars. So Bear Var asking earlier about where to post, and these are the old results: 99.8% European, 99.1% Ashkenazi Jewish, 0.5% Central and Eastern European, and then British and Irish at 0.2%. And then I'm curious what the 0.2% trace ancestry would be. But Bear Var getting the Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews ancestry regions, which I am curious. Bear Var, I'm sure you're still in here. What can you give us like a general breakdown of, like, do you have known Sephardic and Mizrahi ancestry? And if so, about how much of your ancestry would you expect to be that? So, like, for me, I expect if recombination were perfect, I would have 7.8% Sephardic ancestry. Oh, okay. They are my new results. I was 100% Ashkenazi. Oh, yeah, those are the new results. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about the set at 100%. Okay. So yeah, for some reason I thought these were old and then this was new. So, okay. So interesting. So you got this, and then it gave you Adeni Jews, B'nai Israel, European Sephardic Jews, Georgian Jews, and Western North African Jews. Did I? I don't think I got any of that. I need to go in and see my results for a second. Yeah, because I don't think I got any of that. That's kind of weird. Because that's one of the things when I was looking at my results that I was like really hopeful for was like, okay, did they add anything Sephardic wise? Because for me, it's like, you know, I'm 7.8% Sephardic and I'm 92.2% Ashkenazi. And so it's like I'm always hoping that they start picking up on Western Sephardic diaspora. And yeah, no, they didn't. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't They didn't give me that reading. All right. Well, there you go. There's a story in my family that we have ancestors who escaped from the Spanish Inquisition. Yeah, which honestly is not uncommon. There's been a lot of history and genealogy researchers that discovered in 18th century Poland, and I think elsewhere, there was like a really common thing of families to adopt stories of having ancestors who escaped the Inquisition. And it's actually very easily comparable to the modern day common story in American families of having a Native American ancestor. So I think that's something I've discussed in a lot of videos, and probably a lot of people have heard, especially if you've ever seen any videos that are like, or read any blogs that are, the top genealogy myths, Ellis Island, Native American princesses, and things like that. But top myth in Ashkenazi Jewish families, having a Sephardic ancestor that escaped the Inquisition and ended up in Eastern Europe, which through a lot of historical research, they've found that, it's possible that there may have been very small instances of singular people doing that, but there's no larger common population wave that actually proves that. So it's been very, very interesting learning about that. But basically, they found that a lot of these stories started to pop up in these families in the 1700s. So kind of like Ashkenazi Jews in Poland in the 1700s being like, oh, those exotic Sephardic Jews. Yeah, I feel like that'd be a good basis for a Modi bit or something like that. Yeah, okay, let's see. So Berivar's wife's results, and Berivar included the comparison page, which great, that's awesome. So wife's results, European 98.6%, mostly Ashkenazi Jewish at 97.6%. Then we get small part of Greek and Balkan, small part of Nordic, and then Western Asian and North African at 1.4%, broken into Anatolian and North African basically. But we look at the older results, and we see European changed, went down 0.8%. We see Ashkenazi Jewish went down 0.1%. The Greek and Balkan showed up, wasn't there before. Bosnian Croatian, which is new, and that's why it showed up. They have this new reading. Nordic, 0.3%, previously Scandinavian, but Danish, that's the new thing, and that's why they're getting Nordic now. And then Western Asian and North African, that went up for them. But the thing that seems to have stayed the same is this North African reading down here. So where did... Yeah, basically just kind of the Ashkenazi Jewish went down and the European overall went... Where was... Oh, it was probably the broadly categories or something, because they're definitely not including everything in here, I don't think. I could be wrong. No, they are including everything. Yeah, interesting. So for those who don't know, this is something that you can find for your results on 23andMe as well. So, all right, let's continue on. What other results we have? Okay, we have Drea. And Drea posted the chart as well. And we've got a very interesting mixture here of Asian ancestry and European ancestry, with most of it being Asian ancestry and it Filipino and Austronesian. And that's 92.9%, went down. We have Chinese, 3.4%, that's gone up. And Southern Chinese and Taiwanese, that went up. And then Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar, 0.6%. So I think the things that like make it confusing here is they don't seem to be including the broadly categories, because I'm sure Drea had broadly. Drea, if you're in here, if you're in the chat, say if in the old results you had broadly categories or unassigned. But then for the European ancestry, we see the Italian Maltese. That's gone up 1.4%, previously just called Italian, but Northern Italian now, Sardinian, which is moved from Southern European. So I do like that they also include the notes of like, what was this? So people understand. Spanish Portuguese, that showed up because of this Andalusian, Asturian, and Castilian. And it's all of these, like everybody, it seems, are getting these small percentages within the European. I guess everyone that has European ancestry seems to be getting all these small percentages. And I think I said it before, but just saying it again, I think that's a good indication that there is a lot of work they need to do on these. And I think hopefully we'll see a version 7.5 or 7.2 or whatever they want to call it. I don't know why these companies choose the most random numbers. Like what did MyHeritage calls their old version 0.95 or something like that. Like, it's like, what? Okay. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully it'll get better. But I think a lot of these small percentages, it reminds me a lot of the DNA results we would see like 10 years ago when they started to move away from just really reading continentally to actually reading much more regionally. And then you'd see they'd come out with all these new regions, and then people would get all these small percentages of it, and they'd update, and all of a sudden the small percentages would go away. And I think that's what we'll see here once version 7.5 or version 8 or whatever comes out, it's going to update. So Drea, Indonesian, etc. is new, but probably Southeast Asian reclassified. Chinese and Filipino makes sense in those percentages. Surprised that Ashkenazi Jewish is still stubbornly sticking around when no other sites clock it. I'd have anticipated Sephardi if I do have Jewish ancestry, which I think makes sense with the Filipino-Spanish ties. But British Western is a bit weird, LOL. Yeah. And one more, and then I might have one recent Southern European ancestor. We have one unknown that's the most likely, but more likely small percentages just piling up. Yeah. So I think that seems to be the case. I think it definitely seems like you've got a European ancestor somewhere, and at 3%, third great grandparent, fourth great grandparent, and then understanding, the range of these percentages in a sense. Maybe it could even be a fifth great grandparent way back there. But yeah, so with that breakdown, Italian Maltese, the Spanish and Portuguese, that very small percent of Ashkenazi Jewish at 0.4%, which I guess I'm not that surprised that it didn't really change. But it is what it is. And then the British and Irish and the Western European popping up in there. Probably not just trace result, but probably not true. So yeah. All right, we've got Neek. Neek, bench you here? Yeah, so if you are, just say so. But yeah, so this is Neek's Dutch grandma's old and new results. Much better. So we have 99% Western European, broken into Dutch and Northern German is 99%. British and Irish 0.7, all Welsh, Nordic, Danish 0.3%. And then this is version 7. If we look at version 6, Northwestern European, yeah, you can see no Dutch beforehand. Now it's almost all Dutch. And I'm not surprised this is part of the update with the Dutch. Ancestry's new update, or their most recent update a while back, and MyHeritage's most recent update a while back, those added Dutch to it. We're expecting another Ancestry update soon. I've been here. Good. So yeah, I think for a lot of folks with Dutch ancestry, it's a very, very good update. And then we're getting Friesland and Western Groningen very close. Central East Netherlands, de Oosten Netherlands, very close. Groningen and Noorda Drenthe, very close. Netherlands, country match, Germany, country match, Northwestern states. Nordvesta. It can be. So yeah. All right, so very interesting. And then let's see, we have a few more. Okay, we don't have that many more, so I'll try to go through all of them because I have been going for a little over an hour now. So starting to also see the numbers slowly go down a little bit. So yeah. All right, so Cindy found my dad's. Okay, so these are your dad's original results. Yeah. So all right, yeah, yours. Dad's what's up here. So yeah. Northwestern European 99.6, 49. Was that the okay? Those are the old, yeah. So 99.6, 49.8 French and German, 46.5 British and Irish, 1% Finnish, 2.3% broadly Northwestern, 0.4% broadly European. So French and German, British, Irish mostly. And going up to look at the new ones again. Yeah, British, Irish 61.6. Western Europe now 30.5%. That's broken up a lot more. And that, yeah, so. But is it better? Do you think it's better or worse? All right, and then going down, we have monkey. Let's see. And then they say there's something. Is it possible that the Japanese mistaken for indigenous American? All right, so let's see. I think it's possible. All right, we get the full shebang. Are those okay? Those are the new results. So here's the old results. We'll look at those first. And we get 49.4% European, mostly Spanish and Portuguese. And then notice how, remember I was talking about that Spanish Portuguese, very common to get the Ashkenazi Jewish. Even though it says Ashkenazi Jewish, it doesn't necessarily mean Ashkenazi. It could be Sephardi. And this is an issue I've had with a lot of these tests for a long time. I constantly think the Ashkenazi Jewish readings they give should be redefined as European Jewish, because there is a lot of overlap. Especially, there were a lot of Western Sephardi communities where there wasn't a whole lot of marriages and children between Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews in Western communities. But there was sometimes, and especially in the 1800s, that's when it started to become much more common. But like Amsterdam, from like the 1500s all the way up into the early 1800s, it was very scandalous for an Ashkenazi Jew and a Sephardi Jew to marry and have kids. But even so, because of how much Ancestry Jews as a whole share, it makes it very difficult to read between them all. And so, especially with Spanish and Portuguese, it's probably going to be Sephardic Jewish, not Ashkenazi Jewish. So they really should be saying European Jewish here, because they don't know which way for sure. But anyway, okay, I digress. Indigenous American, 23.3%. And that's just North American. East Asian, 21.4%. And that's broken into Japanese and Korean, with most of it being Japanese. And then Sub-Saharan African at 3.6%. And that's West African and Congolese and Southern East African. And then those are broken up even more. And then we have the Western Asian and North African readings at 2%. And then that's broken up a good bit. So I believe these are the old results. And now here we have the new results. And so, oh wait, was it the other way around? Did I go backwards? Yeah, that's I will. No, I couldn't have gone backwards because, yeah, I did, because the new results have unassigned. Okay. Okay, yeah, I went backwards. My bad. My bad. I guess, yeah. What? So for the old results, then they do get Indigenous American, East Asian, yeah. So I think it's really interesting. The question that was posed is it possible that the Japanese mistaken for Indigenous American DNA? And I think it's certainly a possibility, but at that high a percentage on this and the old results, I think that's really questionable. And especially with the East Asian, you're getting an actual community reading. It doesn't show it in this view for some reason. I wonder if this view must be like the app version view or something. Actually, if it is, let me know, because it's not what it looks like on my desktop. But with 20.9%, I mean, to me, it feels like that's the equivalent of, a grandparent. And I can't think of anything other than the North American, Indigenous American, that it could be tied to. But even then, I don't think I've seen that high of a reading necessarily with it. So yeah, I don't know. That's very interesting. I mean, that'd be the type of thing where I'd be getting other family members to test, especially if you can get your parents to test. Yeah. See now, but is that the thing is I don't know if that high a percentage is common. It is common for people that have Indigenous American ancestry to get other Asian readings, especially East Asian or vice versa, but it's such a high percentage. The other thing is that based on what they say, it makes it sound like they expect to have mostly, or they expect it to be an Indigenous ancestry. So yeah, I don't know. It very well could be. I'm not 100% sure. So, okay. So my paternal grandmother was Japanese, but how much of the Indigenous South American is your grandmother getting? Or are you getting, I guess? Because like that's the thing. Like if it was, I guess for you, if you're getting 12% Japanese and 12% Indigenous, then that kind of makes sense with what we're seeing here. But yeah, so it wasn't that high. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what stands out to me, is just how high it is. Is there Indigenous American ancestry from the far north? That's a good question. Maybe that is a big difference if they're like North American ancestries from like Alaska or Inuit or like something like that, and tied much closer to East Asia. That certainly would make a bit more sense. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is this a common thing that a lot of people are finding? And if so, are the percentages similar to this? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, could Ainu be part of the story? Possibly. I remember this coming up in another stream, or maybe it was in comment section of a video of mine, where we were talking about Japan. I remember people talking about, I think this is with northern Japan, the Ainu people are an indigenous people of Japan with historical territories in Hokkaido, Sakhalin, and the Kuril Islands. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's certainly possible. But I will say this is the type of thing that's kind of, I guess, out of my expertise, because I certainly do not have an expertise in Asian results. So I don't really see like hundreds of them like I do with Jewish results and European American results. And I guess to a lesser extent, British European results too. So, okay. That was the last one posted. So, and I've been going for just about an hour and a half. And, oh, whoops, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Meant to do that. If that Japanese percentage is true, they'd probably have 100% Japanese DNA matches. That's another good point. If it is true, they should be finding Japanese matches. And I will say the one thing of 23andMe Plus that I think does seem worthwhile is the ability to search by population group and the percentage of that population group. So basically, you can go on there and look for DNA matches that are Japanese at 100%, or 75% or 50%, or I think it's like a slider. So I haven't paid for the 23andMe Plus. I've been thinking about it just because it's like, well, maybe I should talk about it, but they require you to pay for a year. You can't do it monthly. So that's an annoyance because it's like, I don't want to pay that much. And on top of that, there's so little benefit I see to it. Like, for one, the DNA matches that I do have on 23andMe, I don't really think that slider thing is going to be worthwhile for me specifically. And the other thing is, with 23andMe, you pay for the Premium Plus for a singular DNA kit. If I had an Ancestry, or if I had a profile like Ancestry where I had a managing profile that I had like 20 kits under, and I could go to my clients' kits and all of that and be able to pay for 23andMe Plus, boom, that would be amazing to do. But they don't do that. So if anyone from 23andMe is watching, I think that would be an amazing service you could offer to boost your ability to get the genealogy community to be willing to pay for this. Make it so that we can have a managing system for a bunch of DNA kits and the ability to pay for the Premium Plus and to apply that to all those kits. You did that, I bet you there would be a whole bunch more genealogists willing to pay for it. And not just willing to pay for it, excited, because I can't apply Premium Plus to my own kit. But I have all these other kits for my clients, and all I can ever tell them is, if you can pay for it, and if you're willing to pay for it, great, that's going to help me in being able to do your DNA stuff. But a lot of them don't want to. So it's like, and then I'm not really willing to pay for it because I know it's not going to be that useful for me, for my results. I mean, I could find uses for it, but it's not enough to warrant paying for it. So I don't know, 23andMe, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things progress over the next couple of years, and if they are going to be able to not only dig themselves out of a hole, but put themselves back into a similar position they were in previously with the genealogy community. For years and years and years, I heard people pushing 23andMe way more in the genealogy community than Ancestry. And it wasn't until about 2019, 2020 that I started to see that flip. In all honesty, I bet if you went through Family History Fanatics' old videos, maybe even some of my old videos, because Family History Fanatics, I think, goes back to like 2015, 2016. My videos only go back to 2017. But you go back and start looking, and it's going to be like, whoa, there is so much, such a big difference in what people were saying about do this company, not that company. And back then, it was much more about 23andMe. I mean, 23andMe was the largest database until Ancestry came in, and because Ancestry had such a large database of people already for their regular genealogy stuff, that's why they were able to instantly be able to get such a huge hold on things. But for 23andMe, they just kept fumbling, and they kept pushing the genealogy community away. And then recently, as we talked about at the beginning of the stream, all the different news and stuff going on there, all the different news and the credential stuffing attack and all the different stuff just pushed even more people away. Yeah. And then they took stuff away too. The chromosome browser, they used to have chromosome browser, not there anymore. No segment data, no longest segment. They do have some segment data, but I think the segment data is only the number of segments. And I think you can only see it when you're looking at your full-on DNA match list. I think so. So, yeah. So there's a lot of places that they could really, really build off of. And I think, like I mentioned, there's two main things. I'm going to say them again. One, making it so that we can get DNA kits transferred into 23andMe. Charge $25, charge $50, whatever, make it cheaper than buying a full kit, and make it easy as just a couple of clicks. And they're going to get a huge boost of money and a huge boost on their database of people from that. The other thing, make 23andMe Premium Plus worthwhile. And that means making it so that we have profile logins instead of singular kit logins, and then the ability to manage multiple kits, and not just multiple, not just like 2 or 3. I mean, like managing like 50. You make it so professional genealogists like myself, who have a bunch of clients that we do work for, so that we can manage their kits and have the premium plus as part of that. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that gets clients sometimes, is just the fact that they don't want to pay for all the various memberships. So as a genealogist that pays for all the memberships to have, it makes it so that they're like that instantly is, a big cost to a lot of them. I mean, Ancestry memberships and all the other memberships I pay for Genealogy and DNA Painter and the DNA, all of that stuff, it adds up. And, that's something that, people don't want to pay $1,000 for all of these memberships and then have to do the work themselves. So yeah. FTDNA also needs profile logins as well. Completely agree. The one thing I will give FTDNA is that at least you can have if you do a Y-DNA test and a mitochondrial DNA test, you can have all of those under the same profile. But yes, 100% agree. Same exact thing. They need just a regular user login and then the ability to tie specific DNA kits to those user logins, so you can manage more than one. And MyHeritage recently, in the past few years, they rolled out a collaboration system that's been pretty good. I still like Ancestry's a bit better just because it's a bit more robust, at least in my experience so far. But, when MyHeritage came out with that was a huge thing to contend against the Ancestry, because it made it for the professional genealogists or the genealogy obsessed enthusiasts who have lots of kits to manage. I mean, that's a big deal, to be able to just go and click from one to the other instead of having to log out, log back in, have a storage of all these, hundreds of passwords and this and that, and just, ridiculous. So, okay. With that, I've been going for an hour and a half. I think I'm going to call it there. So thank you everybody for joining today. I guess I should mention before we leave too, if you would like to do any consultations with me, I do have consultations still available. Just send me an email at geneavlogger@gmail.com. It does cost money. So it's not a free thing, but you do get to sit down with me over a Zoom call and have me go in depth with you for a half hour, an hour, however long you pay for, to answer your genealogy questions and help you figure out your genealogy research. But beyond that, new video coming out soon. Remember, for my Patreon members and my YouTube members, or my Patreon patrons and YouTube members, you should be able to see the new video soon. If not, probably in the next couple of hours at the very least. And for those of you who aren't Patreon patrons or YouTube members, definitely look into it. Help support the channel, makes it so I can continue doing all this kind of stuff. And of course, be sure to join our Discord server. Get involved, and I'll probably do more streams in the future, kind of like this, where involve people on Discord, so you can get more involved and maybe even get stuff answered and or gone over in live things. So, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on next week's stream. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and I'm out. I'll see y'all later.